New York. We're going to Fishkill near West Point to be at Angel Lugo, Coach Angel Lugo's place in Wappinger. It's an extra innings. We're going to go out there and do a clinic. We're going to have a camp going on the next day too. Those dates are still available, so TopVelocity.org. You go to TopVelocity.org. You can check out the camp dates also too. We got camps coming up for Christmas or the winter breaks. We're going to be out in Napa Valley for a camp too on the a clinic on the 20th, 21st, 22nd. We're going to be doing camps in Napa Valley. So pretty excited about that. So go check out those camps. Right now we're doing a live stream. So I'm on a few different networks here, trying out YouTube, Periscope, and Instagram, Facebook. So wherever you are, I'm going to take some questions. If you are on my Instagram at TopVelocity, there's in the stories, there's a question, ask a question, and I'll answer it. So I've got a good amount of them that have popped up. So we're going to kind of go through these questions. If any of you have a question while this is live, ask it. I'll try to get to it as I can, but if you want to really get in the list, go to Instagram and go ask the question on my Insta Live or Insta Stories, and that's what I'm going through right now. I kind of got the list right here. So here we go. Let's look at our first question. We got, it says, let me see who this was. This was Christian. He asked, when you see a pitcher push the ball, is there a common cause or impairment you see? So pushing the ball, in my book, pushing the ball is when your elbow gets out in front of your face. I talk about this a lot, where if the elbow gets in front of the face, okay, as I'm going into pitch release, it gets in front of the face. High velocity pitchers typically, the elbow doesn't, because you start internally rotating, pronating at that point. If it gets in front of the face, it causes a lot of problems. I just did a video recently how when it's in front of your face, the torques are really digging into the elbow. That's where the lever is at that point. If your trunk's forward and you're internally rotating, the torques are higher up the elbow at that point. So the torques are going to be off the UCL, so it's going to be a lot healthier. He says, what's the cause of this? So the cause of it is action-reaction. So if I'm going to cock my arm behind my back and let it drag there for a long time, then the catch-up phase, when the arm comes around, action-reaction. If it stays in horizontal, what's called horizontal abduction too long, then it shoots into horizontal adduction, and that's pushing in front of the face. So basically, if we stay here too long and we get to the catch-up phase, we're going to go and push forward in front of the body. Also, too, it's going to be affected by the trunk. If the trunk's really not moving forward, then the arm has to push forward because the release point's going to be more in front of the face. If my trunk is way out here, now my release point's more above my head. I'm not going to be pushing because now my elbow is by my ear. I'm internally rotating earlier. So it's really it's arm action, you could say, but better to put it as it's early trunk rotation. So if my trunk wants to go early, better chance I'm going to get stuck in horizontal abduction back here, and then the catch-up is going to be adduction. Obviously, what we don't want that early trunk rotation. We want the arm to have time and get up and lay back. So the catch-up is internal rotation, not horizontal adduction and pushing in front of the face. So it's typically linked to more than likely early trunk rotation or early trunk tilts. If you're just starting your trunk early, if you could keep or separate better and give your arm time to load, you're not going to try to catch up in what's called horizontal adduction. So hope that helps. Let me see, what do we got here with Instagram? Let me see if anybody's asking questions on my Instagram. And it doesn't look like it. One more time, if you want to ask a question, probably be easier as opposed to me going up there and seeing on the chat right now. If you just go to Instagram, under my Insta Stories, TopVelocity, ask your question. It's going to pop up here. I'll keep refreshing it, make sure that I'm getting all the latest information from it. I see someone just posted a new question, so I just got another one. So we're probably going to be here for a while, right? And actually, I probably should be starting from the bottom because that's the order. So Jacob says, what do you believe your velocity needs to be to commit to D1? Now, I'm not a recruiter, guys. I'm in player development. So, you know, this is coming from my perspective of when I see guys getting picked up. So I'm not the recruiter really kind of setting the standards or the guidelines. But velocity-wise, here's the thing. The harder you can throw, the better. It doesn't hurt. Obviously, I would think there becomes a point where the probability that you're going to get picked up by a D1 under 90 miles an hour is going to be a lot harder. So I'm not saying you have to have it, but it's going to help your chances the higher you are above 90 miles per hour. So you just got to work for it. And here's the thing. How does velocity work? We do it here every day. It's developed. It's developed through the athleticism of the body and the body's ability to use that athleticism through the skill or the biomechanics of the skill. So, you need to take the time and build it. Romero, tips for better finishing motion when delivering a pitch. Delays when delivering and causing arm. See, some of these are cut off. Let me see. No, he didn't. He just didn't finish it. So, tips for better finishing motion when delivering a pitch. Delays when delivering and causing arm something. I think you got cut off right in this. So, finishing a pitch kind of goes with where we were on pushing the ball. If we can't delay the trunk to give the arm time to go through the path, and we don't have enough energy to transfer the trunk forward at that point, typically that comes from the lower half, then we're going to be pushing the ball. It's going to affect precision. It's going to be more stress on the arm. It's going to affect velocity. So a good finish would be doing everything right up to the point of basically the arm starts laying back to where you can just release all of the good work that you have done. And at that point, you know, you've separated hips to shoulders well. So now here comes your arm. It's abducting as it's laying back, and then this front leg is staying stable. Everything starts pushing out. Now this is where all of our work starts paying off. The trunk goes optimally forward, and then the arm wants to turn over and internally rotate. And now you got everything behind the ball. It's healthier for your arm because the loads are efficiently moving up the kinetic chain. Your trunk is moving the energy to your target. You aren't spinning and pulling off away from the target. So now your precision is better because when everything's going to the target, it's easier going to be to locate towards the target. And the stress, like you said, is going to be down, and velocity should be up because you're putting everything behind the ball. So let's see, Chris here. I'm 5'11", 185 pounds. I sit 84. Should gaining muscle mass my main priority? So he's 5'11", 185 pounds, and he's sitting 84. Is muscle mass a main priority? Now, here's the thing, guys, with mass, if it is explosive, meaning if you are gaining mass in the process of pushing your body to be more dynamic, it's a good thing. But, I mean, it gets to a point where, it's like with building power. I could keep building power, I could keep adding mass, but I'm not seeing it out of my hand because I'm not converting it. So all of a sudden you start building all this power and mass, and it's going up, but you don't see the ball speed going up because there's not the conversion. So just remember, the mass and the power development is like the block of the engine, the horsepower of the engine, the pistons. The transmission is being able to get on the mound and move optimally through the body, through the kinetic chain, to bring all that energy to the ball. That's the transmission. So just like with a car, if I have a big engine and all this horsepower, but I have a really bad transmission, it's failing to get all that work and all that power to the wheels. What happens is it starts to seem like a waste. What you do in the weight room becomes a waste. I think that's what a lot of coaches see that kind of don't like the weight room. They see guys making all these gains in the weight room, then they don't see it on the mound or in the skill, then they're like, well, it doesn't work. Well, there's a conversion. There's the transmission. Just because, you see the pistons firing, but the wheels aren't spinning, doesn't mean you don't need a big engine, or you can get a smaller engine. What it means is the transmission, whatever is getting that power to the wheels, isn't working, isn't converting well. And that's a key part. So yeah, muscle mass is good, but it's wasted if it can't convert. So that's why you have to work on the skill as much as you work on the weight room. So you know, you're 185. I like to see guys around 200. I think 200 is a good place to go. And at that point, you could keep going higher. It's just the challenge is to get better at the skill in converting all that energy. So I would say you could add another 10, 15 pounds, but at the same time too, how well are you converting that? That's going to be the key. So you can't have one without the other. What would you say if someone said power cleans only work for beginners? Well, it's a misconception. This is Dan. Beginner gains, guys, is always the best in any type of power training. Beginner gains are always, because it comes so fast. So the layman could say, well, the beginner gains in power cleaning, meaning like, that's what you're saying, like that's the only good, it's only good for beginners because the beginner gains are so good. Well, if that's great, but if you want more gains, you can still get it, it just gets harder to do. And here's the thing, it's like throwing 85, like it's easy to go 75 to 85, it's cake. It's really hard to go 85 to 95. But doesn't mean what was so easy to get you to 85 is not going to work to get you to 95. It's going to work. It's just you're going to have to get even better at it. It doesn't mean all that stuff doesn't work. It's like saying the power cleans for beginners give them all this power and all these gains, and then all of a sudden it doesn't produce as much gains. Doesn't mean it doesn't work anymore. It just means to get to an elite level with it gets harder. It's like anybody can throw 85, but very few can throw 90, 95 because it gets so much harder there. Okay, so be careful in that, saying the tool, because it works so well in the beginning, doesn't mean it's good at the advanced level. It's just as good, it's just you're getting to a higher level of capacity of what the human body can actually go through, or you're getting to the point where just being sloppy and adding weight isn't going to be enough to get to an elite level of power. Now you're going to have to get better at technique, you're going to have to get better at mobility, you're going to have to get better at forcing your body to adapt at this elite level. Doesn't mean throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? So Dan says, because it's not in the power planes of motion and won't correlate to velocity. So Dan's saying, is power cleans in the power planes of the motion? They are. Front leg stability and extension, studies show, have a high correlation to ball velocity. So your ability to stabilize and extend and push back. That is a sagittal plane of movement. A power clean, you catch, you stabilize, or you fire up. It's the same exact movement. So a power clean is identical to the front foot correlations to ball velocity. Back foot, is there vertical power? Yes, there is vertical power, but there's also lateral power. So it does even help the back leg. The thing is, you need also lateral power. So you need to add in lateral work like we typically do with sleds. So to say that power cleans don't convert to the pitching delivery or pitching velocity would be very ignorant of how the front leg works. It's a sagittal movement, just like power clean is a sagittal movement. There's many studies showing vertical force production increases velocity. Vertical force production from the power clean will increase velocity. You just, like you said, as you get more advanced with it, you need more lateral power. There's other things you got to do. It's not enough just to do the power cleans. Oscar, how can I throw a better changeup? So we've got a great course. David Ardsma did his pitch grip course, topvelocity.net, pitch-grip by David Ardsma, and he goes through like 14 different pitches. David Ardsma played for 14 different teams, played 10 years in the bigs, and he goes through everything. So with the changeup, you know, it's just really trying to slow down the speed of the ball. And I've had big league pitching coordinators tell me that sometimes they just tell guys to throw a BP fastball. So if you throw a BP fastball, hey guys, don't you down a little bit? You throw a BP fastball, like taking a little bit speed off of your fastball, like 10 miles an hour, just by throwing it slower, can be a great changeup. I've heard this all the way up to the big league level. So a changeup really just needs to be whatever you're doing in your grips, 3 fingers, circles, foshes, whatever you're doing, it just needs to slow the ball down, and that's really what you're trying to get, the deception of slowing the ball down. All right, let's see. Hunter says, how do I know if my pitching motion is in sync? I know if it's not in sync, then it's hard to see a gain in velocity. So, how do you know it's in sync? You got to know biomechanics. So, I just did a video on the 10 plus checkpoints for pitchers. So, that checkpoint list on YouTube, you should go check it out. That checkpoint list is showing you where you have to be through your delivery. So if you don't understand biomechanics, and specifically how it pertains to you and your pitching delivery, then you're not going to be in sync because you don't know what sync means. If you don't know how the pieces of the puzzle go together to do what you want to do, then you're not going to know if it's laid out correctly or if it's in sync. So you really need to learn and study and understand these checkpoints that we've defined in 3X pitching, and make sure, do your own analysis, your own evaluation by filming yourself. Am I hitting those checkpoints? So if I am, I'm in sync. And if you're not in sync, you're going to be like, well, look, I'm missing these key checkpoints. That's probably why I'm not in sync. Duncan asks, what are some good measures, tests you can do to measure progress and improvements? So testing is very important. We talk about this. You should really assess weekly, if you could. You don't have to assess everything weekly, but you should assess something weekly. Tests you're going to want to do are anthropometric tests, which are mobility tests. You know, joint ranges. How are your joint ranges working? Are they getting better? Performance tests, like how fast am I running? How high am I jumping in all planes of movement? How strong am I? Okay. You can do those. You know, there's so many we can do. If you come to 3X Velocity Camp, we take you to 3X Velocity System, we measure all this stuff. And we give you a baseline, and then we set goals where you need to be, and then we ask that you continue to assess and make sure your programming is helping you make improvements. Also, too, biomechanics. So those are those checkpoints we just talked about. You need to assess those checkpoints. So if you have that map of anthropometrics, mobility, speed, strength, power, performance measurements, biomechanics, and you know where you started, and then you're training your off season, all that needs to go up and get better, and then you need to maintain that through the year, and that's the key to it. If you want to learn that evaluation system, that would be coming down to 3X Velocity Camp. So Josh asked, tennis elbow, recovery for pitchers. Yeah, someone's asked this before. I did a show on this on the at Top Velocity show on YouTube. So probably just search that, go to Top Velocity, or on YouTube search Top Velocity tennis elbow. Tennis elbow is typically outside of the elbow. It's a varus. It's typically where you're going through a varus position. Basically, it's the deceleration of the forearm. To me, that's going to be mechanical issues. You could be delaying internal rotation. So you're delaying internal rotation, and your speed of internal rotation is really high. You're also weak. You don't have a lot of forearm strength, bicep strength, tricep strength. So there's different factors in there. But go check that out. You could actually get some more on that. Look at here. Somebody's chatting on Facebook Live. Love all the info. My son was just diagnosed with right proximal ulnar stress reaction, shut down for 6 weeks. It doesn't allow me to see it all. Sorry to hear that, man. Injury is a big part of this game, and that's what we try to do here. If I can educate you guys and give you a better understanding of how all this works, better chance you're not going to hurt yourself. So I feel like majority of injury, well, ASMI says injury comes from three things, which is a good point. It's typically the product of overuse, poor physical fitness, and poor mechanics. At the end of the day, it's really overuse, guys. The poor physical fitness, poor mechanics is causing your body to fall into overuse quicker. So that the stronger you get, better your mechanics get, you can basically endure more, ideally. But there's a capacity for everyone. It doesn't matter how great your mechanics are. There's a capacity, a level that you're going to reach, and you're just going to start breaking down. It's just the way the game works. And we typically push too hard. Jace asks, any tips to help me to get working more downhill? So, downhill. It's a conventional word we hear a lot of times, downhill. It is a good point to make that the reason the mountain is declined, that lift gives you the ability to pick up more momentum and gravity because you can fall off a higher place as opposed to like a softball pitcher. They can't do that. So you can use that energy. So sometimes when guys say downhill, they more than likely maybe want you to just use the mound better, get more energy going down the mound. They want to get more energy into your front leg because that's typically what happens when you get more momentum going. You hit front leg harder, and then what happens is, ideally too, your trunk pushes out harder and everything comes out of your hand later. You know, all this is kind of leading to the perceptions of downhill pitching when you hear that. So just look at it that way. I got to use the mound better. Pitching downhill is using the mound better. I can't just stand on my back leg and just cock my arm and throw my arm. I've got to get momentum going down the mound. I've got to put all that energy into front foot, and I got to transfer all that forward as late as possible in the movement. That would be the key. I mean, that's pretty much everything in 3X pitching too, if you really want to learn the mechanics behind that. What are some great drills and exercises that can get your velocity high? So, you know, there's pretty much everything. I mean, any type of training, resistance training that's force and adaptation is going to increase velocity, even up to what I, you know, really stand up against is weighted balls. Weighted balls improve velocity, but at a high cost of injury, or a risk of injury, which is the problem, and I find it a waste. It's not worth it. I'd rather force an adaptation in all the other joints of the body that typically don't blow out, as opposed to the shoulder and elbow. Weighted balls want to force an adaptation in the two joints we already overload, and that's why I believe that studies show they have a higher risk of injury at high intent. So I'm going to want to, you know, lift my legs, lift my core, lift my total body. That's why we love the Olympic approach. There's no better way to build power through a matured kinetic central nervous system. Basically, you're forcing the central nervous system to optimize each joint through improving its ability of proprioception as it enhances power. There's no better way to build an elite athlete than that way. And those are great exercises for velocity. Also too, any drills that are teaching you how to optimize movements like leg drives, hip to shoulder separation. Of course, it's all the things that we do at Top Velocity. I just did a cool little free course for you guys if you want to go check it out. This is going to be a limited thing, so if you want to go check it out right now, I would recommend that, topvelocity.net/lower half, all one word. And it's really a 3-video series on, I mean, there's 4 videos. The 4th video kind of pulls it all together for you, but it covers some of these key components of the lower half, how to implement the lower half. Are you guys, you know, coaches tell you all the time, you need to use your lower half. You're not using your legs. You're not using you're not building momentum. So this is really showing you how that works. So if you want to go and try that out, it's free. It's pretty cool. topvelocity.net/lower half, all one word, and you'll get the free course. It's pretty cool. Do you have any connections with independent MLB or MLB teams? MILB or MLB teams? I do, guys, but my connections aren't really in recruiting. Guys don't really come to me for recruits in these levels. They come to me for player development questions and advice and consultation. So, I mean, I've had guys that have really impressed me that I've reached out to these organizations professionally, and I'm always willing to do that if you impress me. So I'll reach out to those that I know. So that, you know, that's another thing, guys, coming here and living and training is it gives you an opportunity to, you know, basically tap into all of our resources ideally. But I would say our recruiting resources really isn't why people come here. People come here for the information, the training environment, the assessments, the tools, and everything. So, let's see. Jamie asked, what is the most important to teach to a 7-year-old for a kid pitch? So with the younger kids, I still want them to learn the lower half. It's just a lot harder, you know, because your legs, your body's typically weaker. So unfortunately, I feel like we learn this game backwards. We learn pitching backwards. We get more into the arm when we're young, and then we get to a point where we, you know, get into high school, and now we got to really compete, start throwing harder, and we just go right to the arm to try to throw harder, and it leads to injury and issues. Ideally, if we could have developed the lower half very young and pitched using the whole body, then we don't have that point of getting into high school where now we almost have to be reverse engineered because we've been doing everything top down as opposed to bottom up. So, you know, it's a harder process for a 7-year-old, but ideally I want a 7-year-old to go through the same lower half training to start building the foundation and building the kinetic chain. So go to topvelocity.net/lower half, watch, go through that free course, learn those components, and I think it's a great place to start for any pitcher at any level, because we don't build them different at different ages. I'm going to build a 7-year-old the same way I build a 25-year-old. You know, it's just a slower progression. It really is just a slower progression at that point. What pro pitcher, in your opinion, maxes all of your techniques and body mechanics? You know, that's a tough thing. I mean, in what I did in developing this approach, you know, I did just like all the studies did. They studied elite pitchers. I studied elite pitchers. I studied the studies that were studying elite pitchers, and I came up with a pretty good understanding of how all this works. And it's an optimal understanding because you're really mixing tons of pitchers together to get an optimal understanding of the body. So it really almost creates a fantasy is that point. Does that guy really exist? No. But you see good versions of it, you know. But here's the thing, these guys are aging. And, you know, I'm not watching baseball as much as I used to because I'm involved in really studying it right now. But, you know, guys like Kershaw and Chapman, you know, Sonny Gray, more in their prime time when their bodies were athletic, more dynamic, moving better. They were great specimens of good mechanics. How do I learn to keep my glove side flying open? You know, we talked about that. A good video on YouTube about flying open, right? Typically flying open, of course, you want to stay closed, but think about it. When I start on the mound, specifically in the stretch, I'm already closed. So what's causing me to fly open? Well, when you throw, you have to open, right? You have to open. So flying open typically is opening early. So why are you opening early? Because you're not staying loaded lateral. You're going into rotation very quickly. So forcing counter rotation, which is the opposite of flying open, and holding, you know, delaying rotation is the key to now I can build lateral linear power, and then I can trigger that late in the movement. Problem is guys just right when they start their delivery, they just fly wide open. So anything that's going to help you counter rotate, build more lateral power, get more of your lower half, get more momentum down the mound, all these things are going to help prevent flying open, right? Because you're doing the opposite. We got, somebody gave me Spanish. Sorry, I don't speak Spanish. Do you, Tyler?
Huh?
You speak Spanish?
A little bit.
See if you can figure this one out. I'll answer this next one. What are the best ways to build strength for torsion? What are the best ways for building strength for torsion?
Do you work with Latinos?
Oh, well, kind of answered it. I would, but I probably can't communicate with them. Said yes, definitely work with Latinos. We have a good Latino connection, right?
Yeah.
We had our Miami boys in here.
You did.
We have had some guys from the Mexican leagues. We get a good amount of. We love to have more. I have actually a guy who can do a lot of Spanish for me, Coach Lopez. So if you are interested, I would say reach out to Coach. It's like Coach.Lopez on Instagram, or I'll get you contact if you need it. If you need a translation. What are the best ways to build strength for torsion? So in torsion, it's really how we squat. When we squat, we want to stay externally rotated. Okay, we want to. As we hinge, we want to feel rotation in the femurs, and that creates stability, and we want to stabilize externally. So strength there is going to be posterior, you know, glute medius, piriformis. You know, posterior strength is going to help that a lot. And I see a lot of pitchers with weak posterior strength. when they come out of leg lifts, they're rounding their backs, they're rounding their butts, they're in their quads, they're not hinging, sitting in that posterior chain. So posterior development is key. I would even say we don't push it enough. I like when guys come in here, because Olympic lifting, that is more of the explosive thing. Now here, torsion is more of a loading movement, which is going to be more of a posterior movement. But then the explosive movements are not going to be posterior, so as posterior. So we push more, I'd say, in the other direction, but we try to keep that balance. So I'm always adding in posterior chain exercises. So and I encourage that. I don't think you can add in enough for pitchers. So I just don't like it when that's all they do is posterior chain. They don't do any power stuff. So that was the last question. I might have more. I'm going to refresh it. Someone popped up here. I got a question. I heard you, when doing pitching workouts practice, it is your obliques that should be, see, it's cutting me off on this Facebook. That's probably, we're about to finish up here, but you could try real quick. Go to my Instagram and ask a question in my Insta stories. Right now, that's been the best way. Let's see. Yeah, we're getting some more. What else we got? Let's see here. Bryce asks, what are the best core exercises for a pitcher? Pretty much any core exercise. The best core exercises in general are typically like pillars or stabilization exercises. Now I always say a front squat is probably the best core exercise you could ever do, or in that front rack position doing step ups or anything. In anything where you're stabilizing and loading the core is going to be ideal for core training. Now, pitching, yeah, you want to be able to stabilize, ideally, of course. Overall health, you want to be able to stabilize in your core. But there's a lot of rotational movements that are key for pitchers, and pitchers put a lot of loading in those rotational movements. So you do get a lot of oblique strains. But at the same time, too, I feel like those are a lot of guys that pull too much through their obliques as opposed to stabilize. To be honest, I would rather you be going for more stability in your pitching delivery in your core than rotation. There is rotation when we separate, and we really do need to train the ability to eccentrically control and then fire. But there really shouldn't be this overemphasis in rotation, because high velocity pitchers are better when they land at stabilizing through their obliques as opposed to pulling through their obliques, or typically the ones that are healthier do it that way. So the point is you should work core stuff, pillars, front squats, stability stuff like that, and then work in your rotational stuff, but don't overdo the rotational stuff. With the 3X Pitching Velocity Program, we get a lot of the rotational core work just in our drills, because we do all these med drills, these 2-pound med drills, and it really builds a lot of core trunk power in the delivery, which is huge. Justin asks, what are your thoughts on one-handed training bats for top and bottom hand? So this is for hitters. One-handed training bats for bottom or top hand. I like it with hitting. I'm actually still trying to push out our hitting program, but I have it all laid out. I like it with hitting. When you take both your hands off, it's harder to use your hands to swing the bat. I like that with hitting, and it makes me want to engage more ground force, more torsion, more stability up the chain. So I think I really like single hand swings, even though in a lot of our drills I don't even have that, but I would encourage it. I think it's good. Just though, making sure that you understand how to use the body and the kinetic chain in your swing is going to be key. All right, looks like this is coming to an end. And once again, guys, I said I'm going to keep doing these streams, so if you can, subscribe. I got them on YouTube. Subscribe to YouTube. Hopefully this one came out well on YouTube. Subscribe, like my Facebook. Get on YouTube too. Ring the bell, get the alerts so you know it's popping up. Instagram as well. I'm going to keep doing these if you like them. And if you have any suggestions on what you'd like me to cover in these streams, basically just doing some live stuff. If you want me to interview some of the guys that are around here, be glad to do it. Probably next weekend's stream will be from the camp. So next weekend, if you want to get a little highlight of the camp here, check out the streams. Also too, like I said, I just finished that online course for you guys. It's a free course. So sign up for it, topvelocity.net/lower half, all one word, LOWERHALF, lower half. And sign up for that. Pretty cool course. It's going to give you a lot of stuff. I actually put a lot of stuff in there on learning force vectors, learning hip to shoulder separation, learning torsion. We talk about torsion in there. So just try to give you some basics on really harnessing the lower half. If you already have the programs and stuff, still sign up for it, because I talk about other tools in there that help. I give you some more stuff that is not completely in the 3X programs, just some good additions. So check that out. Also too, like I said, camp this weekend, camp next weekend in New York. So the 13th and 14th, pretty fired up. I don't have a lot of guys for that, I know, because it's way up off the Hudson River. But if you're somewhere in the New York area, New Jersey area, Pennsylvania area, Boston, anywhere around there, and you can't come all the way down here and train here, as much as we'd love you to have you here, then I would recommend going to that camp. And then from there, like you said, we have them probably every 2 per month. And to be honest, like I always tell guys, it's better late than never to do this, but don't wait too long, because it's just, there's so much information, there's so much work to do to really optimize you in your career. It takes time, it takes a lot of energy, it takes time. Time's the key part here. So I would say don't hesitate on doing that. Also too, don't forget about Napa. We're pretty excited about Napa. Don't have the place set right now. That'll come up soon, but pretty much we'll be in Napa Valley. So if you're somewhere in Northern California, in December 20th is a clinic, 21st, 22nd is the camp. Sign up for that. I've had a good turnout for that so far. Pretty excited, and I think that's it. Let me see, I might have time for one more question. Let's see if we got one more question. And I think we did. All right, so that's cool. All right, guys, appreciate you following us, and check you again.